you have met someone who was completely wrong and completely sure of it. Maybe it was a coworker. Maybe it was a stranger online. Maybe, if you are honest, it was you. There is a reason for that. And the real answer is far stranger than some people are just arrogant. Your brain was never built to know what it does not know. That sounds like a riddle. It is not. It is a measurable, repeatable, deeply human glitch in how confidence works. Psychologists gave it a name in 1999. They called it the Dunning-Kruger Effect. And once you understand it, you will start seeing it everywhere. In meetings, in arguments, in the mirror. Here's the strange part. The people who know the least about something are often the most confident they understand it, not despite their ignorance, because of it. The very knowledge required to be good at something is often the same knowledge required to recognize you're bad at it. Remove the knowledge, and you remove the ability to see the gap. What is left behind is a strange, unearned certainty, confidence with nothing underneath it. In 1999, a Cornell psychologist named David Dunning and his graduate student Justin Kruger ran a study that would end up defining a generation of internet arguments. They tested people on logic, grammar, and humor. Then they asked each participant to guess how well they had done compared to everyone else. The people who scored in the bottom 25% were not just wrong about their performance. They were wrong by an enormous margin. On average, they believed they had outperformed roughly 2/3 of the other participants. They had, in reality, outperformed almost no one. Why? Because grading your own performance requires the exact same skill as performing the task itself. If you do not understand grammar, you cannot spot your grammar mistakes. If you do not understand logic, you cannot see the holes in your reasoning. The incompetence is not just in the answer, it is in the ability to judge the answer. This is sometimes called a dual burden. You do not know the material, and you do not know that you do not know it. You have two failures stacked on top of each other, disguised as one confident opinion. Think about the last time you learned something completely new. Not improved at, learned from zero. A new language, a new sport, a new job. Do you remember the first week? There is a strange, brief window early on where things feel simple. You pick up a guitar and play 3 chords and think, this is not so hard. That is the peak of what researchers sometimes call Mount Stupid. You are standing at the summit of your confidence while standing at the very bottom of your actual skill. Then something happens. You keep going, and your confidence does not rise with your skill. It falls hard. This is sometimes called the valley of despair. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you do not know. A beginner musician thinks they understand music theory after 3 lessons. A student 5 years in can list in detail everything they still have not mastered. Expertise does not just add knowledge. It reveals the size of the mountain you have not climbed yet. This is not a flaw unique to foolish people. It is closer to a universal law of learning. Dunning himself has pointed out that this is not really a story about stupid people being confident. It is a story about all people, including highly intelligent ones, being confident in the exact areas where they have the least information to judge themselves accurately. Intelligence does not protect you from this. I mean, in some cases, it makes the trap more convincing because a sharp mind can build a more persuasive case for a wrong idea. There is a flip side to this curve, and it might be even more important. At the other end sits real expertise, and real experts tend to do something surprising. They get quieter. Ask a true expert a hard question, and you often get hedging, nuance. It depends. Ask a novice the same question, and you often get a fast, confident, simple answer. This pattern shows up again and again in research on expertise. The more someone genuinely understands a subject, the more they understand its exceptions, its edge cases, its unanswered corners. Confidence, ironically, becomes harder to hold on to the more you actually know. This connects to something psychologist Philip Tetlock uncovered in a massive decades-long study of expert political forecasters. He tracked tens of thousands of predictions made by pundits, professionals, and analysts. The experts whose forecasts turned out to be the least accurate were often the most confident and the most famous. The ones who were more accurate tended to talk in probabilities, caveats, and shades of gray. Certainty, in other words, was often a red flag, not a credential. The loudest voice in the room is frequently not the most informed one. It is simply the one furthest from realizing how much they are missing. So why does your brain do this to you? Why not just default to caution? Because certainty is efficient. Your ancestors did not have the luxury of researching every decision for years before acting. If a shadow moved in the grass, hesitation could cost a life. A brain that commits quickly to an answer, even a shaky one, often outperforms a brain that freezes in endless doubt. Confidence, evolutionarily speaking, was sometimes more valuable for survival than accuracy. You did not need to be right. You needed to move. That ancient shortcut is still running in your skull today, except now it is misapplied to tax law, medical advice, and Twitter debates instead of predators in the grass. There is also a social layer to this. Confidence is persuasive. Humans are drawn to certainty in others because it feels like safety. A leader who says, I am not sure, can seem weak, even when they are being honest. A leader who says, I know exactly what to do, can seem strong, even when they are guessing. Groups have rewarded confident voices for thousands of years, regardless of whether that confidence was earned. This creates a strange incentive. Speak with certainty, and people listen. Speak with nuance, and people tune out. Over generations, this can quietly train a species to prefer the sound of confidence over the substance of accuracy. Here is the twist that makes this effect so uncomfortable to sit with. You cannot simply decide you are immune to it. The nature of the trap is that it is invisible from the inside. Someone standing on Mount Stupid does not feel like they are standing on Mount Stupid. They feel like they finally understand something. That is what makes this different from ordinary arrogance. It is not a personality flaw. It is a blind spot built into the architecture of learning itself. So what actually helps? Not intelligence alone, not effort alone. The research points somewhere more specific: exposure to feedback, real, concrete, outside feedback that cannot be waved away. Novice chess players who only play against other novices can remain confidently bad for years. The moment they play against someone who consistently beats them, the illusion collapses fast. Feedback is the mechanism that drags people down from the peak of false confidence and back onto the real slope of the learning curve. Without it, the illusion can persist indefinitely. Curiosity seems to help too. Not the performative kind, the quiet kind, the willingness to ask, what am I missing here? Instead of how do I defend what I already think? Some researchers describe this as intellectual humility, not doubting yourself into paralysis, simply staying open to the very real possibility that your current confidence might be standing on thinner ice than it feels. Now think back to that coworker, that stranger online, that version of yourself at some point standing at the summit of Mount Stupid, sure of something you barely understood. None of that made anyone a bad person. It made them human, because the Dunning-Kruger effect is not really about foolish people being loud. It is about a species that evolved to move fast, sound certain, and rarely stop to check its own blind spots. You have met someone who was completely wrong and completely sure of it. Maybe it was a coworker. Maybe it was a stranger online. This time, though, ask yourself a different question. Not who that person was, but which mountain you are standing on right now. You are.